If there's one thing you wouldn't expect to find in the shadow of downtown Dallas, Texas, it would be a village out of the mid-19th century. But there it is, no time machines required, the Dallas Heritage Village at Old City Park. Here, as cars whiz by, a visitor can just about step bodily back into a time almost forgotten and watch blacksmiths ply their trade, drink a cold root beer at the Alamo Saloon, or even stumble upon a gunfight straight out of Western dime novels. It is more than worth visiting in person, and if you can't, you can come with me today as we visit the Village Out of Time. Old City Park in Dallas is exactly that, the oldest public park in the city's history. Before that, it was one of the first centers for civilization in what would become Dallas, as first Native Americans and then white settlers were drawn to the natural springs located here. Today, Old City Park is the home of the Dallas Heritage Village, where historical buildings from all over North Texas were saved from destruction by being disassembled, transported, and rebuilt in a place where they can live again. The first place we visit is the oldest, a cabin built 10 years after the fall of the Alamo. Through this rough-hewn door, we get a sense of how intensely cramped life must have been on the edge of the frontier, the bed just a few feet away from the kitchen. After 150 years, the cabin has found itself with a neighbor that it couldn't have imagined in 1846, the plantation-style mansion known as Millermore. The elegance of Millermore stands as a counterpoint to its rough neighbor, and also serves to illustrate how different the lives of early Texans could be. This gap between the planter and the farmer can be seen at Millermore in the lace curtains, the spacious interior, and that most advanced of luxuries, the well-appointed outhouse. One of the joys of the Heritage Village is getting a very real sense of history in living color. Here we can see crops actually growing and being tended, as they would have been in the mid-19th century. Here we get to see a blacksmith working his trade, teaching someone from the 21st century how to shape metal as it would have been done in 1860. Here livestock go about their business, whether in this carriage house or in this chicken coop. One wonders if they know they are living throwback lives centuries out of date. Another cabin reinforces our feelings about the roughness of frontier life, where modern conveniences like a refrigerator are just dreams, and a cold cellar or an icebox will have to do. The country air would flow through the open center of this dog trot style home, giving the inhabitants a chance to sit in the breezeway and cool off. Every settler community featured a church, and it is quite easy to imagine the bell pealing in this one and drawing worshipers on a Sunday morning. Not only does the Heritage Village feature this authentic building, but even the pews are authentic, original to this church. You can't help but imagine, wonder, who sat here over the years. Just around the bend, we come to a building near and dear to my own heart, the schoolhouse, built in 1888. Inside, we find lunch pails hanging from hooks, as if we would find the students we see in the old photographs actually at their seats, ready to learn, if we were to peek around the wall. Students flipping through their reader, laboriously working at the slate, or, if they are trying to make a good impression, leaving an apple for the teacher. From here, the teacher could survey her domain, maybe ask a student to add wood to the only heating mechanism in the building, the wood stove. Occasionally, you notice large areas of the wall painted black, the original blackboards. Older students could be found up the stairs on the second floor, literally in the high school. Just as in real villages of frontier Texas, there is a wealthier side of town, and here we find the Sullivan House. The porch columns give us a good look at the relative wealth of the residents, but we shouldn't leave the porch without noticing the sky blue ceiling paint. This was done to discourage wasps from nesting, supposedly confusing them by imitating the sky. Inside the rooms, we get a sense of how the wealthier might have lived at the turn of the century, seeing furnishings both exquisite in design and beautiful in form. From the busy wallpapers to the heavy furnishings, the taste seems to modernize to be too cluttered, almost oppressive. In this part of town, we also find the doctor's office, looking like any other well-to-do home in the neighborhood if it were not for the sign out front and the bell that jingles when you step inside the door. Here, the doctor saw his patients, read about new procedures and operations in his study, mixed medicines, and hopefully saw little use to break out the poisons on this shelf. Across the street in this elegant Queen Anne-style home, we are drawn in at first by the bright pink exterior, and then by the downstairs furnishings, including this mechanical piano. Perhaps, if you listen closely, you can hear its echo as you move from room to room. As you venture upstairs, where the children slept and played, you also notice troubling signs of the building's age. Keeping these historic buildings standing is an expensive proposition, and the money doesn't fall off trees. If you're in a position to help, the Heritage Village gladly takes donations. Before we leave the residential area and reach the commercial buildings, we glimpse a kind of halfway point between the two. Here, drummers, or itinerant traders, could rent a room from the sisters who ran the establishment. Here we see a to-do list for one of these ladies, outlining quite a full day. Her customers most likely arrived in town here, stepping right off the train from parts unknown. Train stations, especially old ones, always have such a sense of mystery about them, don't they? What stories could these walls tell if they could speak? Every town has a main street, and Heritage Village is no exception. The most imposing structure is the bank, where customers could have felt safe depositing their money or come to ask for a loan, or, as was the case in the aftermath of a gun battle I witnessed while there, rob the vault and run smack dab into frontier justice. The general store stocks all kinds of goods that might even be familiar to us today, such as Quaker oats and cornflakes. But for items that were a little harder to find, almost anything could be ordered from giant catalogs like these. Think of them as the Amazon.com of their day. I ended my visit at the Alamo Saloon with a nice cold root beer, the cap to an amazing day at an amazing place, the Dallas Heritage Village.